Well, Georgia's running backs take a step backwards. That's what Matt DeBerry and I are going to talk about right now. Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry, another edition of Riding Home. We're coming into spring football, Matt. And, James Cook, Zamir White have been really good running backs for Georgia. I mean,
Yeah.
I would almost say exceptional in many ways. Um, is Georgia going to go backwards? I mean, right now you've got Kenny McIntosh coming into this thing. You've got Kendall Milton, who I think a lot of people are eager to see do well. And then you also have Edwards, and then Robinson, who's come in as a highly touted guy from Mississippi. Are they going to take a step backward? Your turn to answer.
I think they have to, right? I mean, your two leading most productive backs from last year are both gone. We know what Kenny McIntosh can do. What he brings is versatility, the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Do they have a hammer like Zamir White who can get you the tough yards, who's great around the goal line, can break tackles with enough speed? We see the potential of what Kendall Milton can do, but he's still a question mark. He's, not proven yet. And right now, I think people are penciling him in as the number two running back. So if he can stay healthy, great. I think he should have a big year, but he hasn't been able to do that. Kenny McIntosh has dealt with some injuries as well. And we saw a little bit of a drop off after the 2017 season when Nick Chubb and Sony left, but you had DeAndre Swift, who's
Right.
better than Kenny McIntosh. And you had Brian Harrion, who was still productive and one of the more
Holyfield.
underrated guys on the team. So I think,
Holyfield.
and Holyfield, yeah. So
Right.
you had a better group back then when Sony and Nick left than you do now with Zamir and James leaving. Branson Robinson, the big incoming freshman, was hurt as his senior year and missed a lot of time. So it's not like he's coming in super fresh, ready to go or anything. So I think there are some question marks on in this group for sure, and probably more question marks than we put on the running backs going into any particular season recently.
Yeah, and you have to be able to run the ball. I think if Kenny alone is healthy, you're in really good shape because there's a lot of positive vibes about his uh, um, production from the folks at in the staff on the staff, excuse me, inside the program. I just, Kendall is the one. Did I just say Kenny? I meant Kenny McIntosh.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Kendall is the Rubik's cube here. I mean, if if he's healthy, he's going to be one of the best backs in the league. That's what I think. But he's not been healthy, and that we're going on 2 years of him not being um, fully healthy the entire time. Some of this past year was, you know, Zamir and
Yeah.
James were really good, and so there just were not as many carries to go around. But in 2020, the same running backs that are here right now were here, and he got a fair amount of snaps. But that's just a thing, can you get where you got to go with just those two guys? I have found that you can't. You need
Yeah.
three guys, and that's the question: is can who is the third guy? Is it Edwards or is it Robinson? I mean,
I
what
could,
do you, I mean, it would need to probably be Robinson,
yeah.
I guess.
Edwards has done pretty well when he's in there. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't see a lot of his carries because they're in blowout wins. But when he's getting the ball in the fourth quarter, you look up and he can break a 20, 30-yard run and flash doing it. He can make you miss. He's pretty strong, I'd say, for someone of his stature. He's not a big running back, but he's got some elusiveness to him. He can change directions, and he's a guy who can pop off a big run, but he's not someone you look to and say, oh, this guy can carry the load as a number one or number two. If we have a 3rd and 3 and need to run the ball, is Dajan Edwards the guy who can do that for you? So I think he brings a lot to the table, but he's not a Zamir, a James Cook, he's not a Nick or Sony, and he's not a DeAndre. So they need at least one or two of those type of backs, those game changing type of backs. Kenny McIntosh can make game changing plays, but he needs
Yes.
another guy behind him. And like you said, probably a third for him to be at his best. Because again, they need his production out of the backfield too. He's not just a hammer who can run between the tackles and just pump out 4, 6, 8, 12, 5, on a consistent basis. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it feels like they would love to add maybe one more back through the portal. I don't think they're going to do that. That's not really their type, but I think they could use some help there.
Well, I'm just looking at Kendall highlights at Georgia, and he's never had a game where he's only twice has he had games where he's had 10 carries or more. But Matt, they used him in the most physical run. They used
Yeah,
him a lot. They used him
yeah,
against now not South Carolina. Okay, he had 10 carries against him. He had 12 carries against Arkansas. He had a week later. He had 9 carries against Auburn. You remember that fourth quarter against Auburn? He killed them. And
yeah,
then he had 4 carries against Kentucky, and he had probably the most important play of that game was a recovered fumble
yeah,
that he had, if you recall that. So and then he didn't play from Kentucky until Michigan. So, and then a season ago, it seemed like he was getting going. Auburn 6 carries, Tennessee 8, Alabama 6, and then a few weeks after that, the Kentucky game where he had 8. Uh, he's just not had a full season, and the question for Kendall is, can he handle that? Can he handle that workflow? I don't know the answer to that. I think if he can, they're in really good shape. But if not, it's too bad for him because I mean, geez, that guy's had a really good. He will have had a career that would be what would be a frustrating career because he hasn't really had the ability to show what he's got. He needs to be healthy. And just looking at Kenny, and I'll throw it back to you right after this. I mean, Kenny very rarely has more than 5 touches at running back a game. So he has been an explosive guy that they've tried to use to get plays that are 15 yards or so, 10 yards. But he doesn't have as many receiving, but about a third of his touches are receptions. And when he's in there, they're pretty damaging when he's receiving the football. So Georgia has different types of backs now. Then they I say that. I mean, Robinson and Edwards are both going to have this is going to be it's just not just going to be a 1-2 punch, man. I don't think. I think it's going to
yeah.
be a committee thing. It seems like to me. And I don't know if that's good or bad or not or what.
Yeah, again, Stetson's going to need that running game, right? That's what they want to
Sure.
do offensively. That's their scheme. Continue to run, 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 pound the football. And I think a healthy Kendall Milton could be the biggest X factor to this
Yes.
offense. If they get this guy healthy for most of the season and can rely on him, that's going to be huge. I think I've looked at Kenny McIntosh the past couple of years as like a sixth man guy coming off the
Right.
bench to deliver a big and explosive play here and there, and he does that because he's fresh. I think the durability could go down if he gets more and more carries. That only makes sense, but his role is drastically changing because right now he's probably looking at RB1 instead of RB3, just like that. So uh, they're going to have to work a few guys in there because that's just what they do. And it could be one of the freshmen. I think Edwards could play a bigger role. But if Kendall Milton is healthy, he's a guy who should be seeing a lot of touches and a lot of opportunities to make plays.
So let's not now Kenny. Let's not be a prisoner of the moment too much. When Kenny was basically the number 2 in that bowl game and kind of at the end of the year when James' father passed away. I mean, he had 10 total touches against Cincinnati for almost 60. I think it was 60 yards. He it was a major reason why
Yeah,
they beat Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl in that last drive with JT
yeah.
Daniels. He had 5. He only had 5 rushes for 17 yards, but he had 5 receptions for 43. I mean, that's not insignificant. Will this become? Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say one of the biggest forgotten plays in the national championship game was early in that drive. I believe it was the one that ended with the Brock Bowers touchdown, the bobbled catch that he had out of the backfield for 12 plus yards that got them a key first down. That's what he can bring. A lot of backs can't make that play. He's one who can.
I actually still have not watched the national championship game, so I know what it. I have not watched it on TV. I've not watched it on YouTube or anything like that. I do know this, man. These guys, they're there, and they're there, if they have a clean season, um, and Kenny can, and you're not asking Kenny McIntosh to have. Well, they didn't do this a lot with Zamir, man. If you're not asking Kenny to have 12 carries a game, I think you're doing all right. I mean, I
Yeah,
could see a scenario where four guys rush, nobody has more than 8 carries or 10, and that's how they do this. I mean, is that really a lot different than they did with Zamir? I mean, Zamir was a guy that, I mean, and everybody knows I love Zamir and all that, but did Zamir really ever have a game where they gave it to him 20 times? I can't recall that. It
Not
wasn't
20.
common. Not
Not
20.
20.
No. So it may just be that this is what it is. This is how it works. There is no game. Zamir had one game where he had more than 16 carries in a game, and that was the Auburn game. The vast majority of his workload was about 10 carries a game. That was his average. He had 160. He played in all 15 games. Talk about a guy they were worried about durability. I
Yeah,
mean, Zamir played in 15 games, if I'm not mistaken.
makes sense.
160 carries, and the math on that is about 10 carries a game, and 856 yards. Zamir White was really
Solid,
important. Yeah,
reliable.
I mean,
Yeah,
reliable
yeah.
and has a lot of tread on the tires remaining. If he had had 20 carries a game for 15 games, I mean, no, you can't. Or just even 10 games, you can't do that. So I don't know,
And we,
man.
we,
It is a concern, Matt.
and we saw how fresh they were for Michigan and Alabama because they were able
Yeah.
to distribute the carries. If they have four healthy guys that they can rotate in, they're going to be just fine. If four healthy backs, they're going to be okay, especially if one of them is Kendall Milton. They're going to be just fine overall. But at some point, someone's going to be banged up, and there's going to be a time where maybe two guys are not 100%. And so the more guys who get opportunities in the spring to learn and get some experience, the better they'll be there in the fall.
Keep this in mind. Um, Georgia played 10 games in 2019. Excuse me, in the pandemic year in 2020. Zamir had 144 total carries in those 10 games. He had 160 in 15, Matt. So
Yeah.
they did a better job of spreading things out and not asking him to do much. And again, you go back to the 2019 season with Zamir. And now some of us knew how special Zamir was and how good he could be. He only had one game uh, that was a significant load. That was the Baylor game where he had 100 yards almost. So guys can explode after not being the number one guy, and Zamir was 1A if James was 1B, and I do think like the question asked, are they going to take a step back? My suspicion is probably, but is that going to matter a lot at the end of the day, Matt? I mean, time will tell. They need Robinson to matter.
Yeah. Um, he's another guy who's physically ready for the SEC right now. So if he can stay healthy, he's another tackle breaker, right? It's nice to outrun guys, and speed is a big deal. But if you can, if it's 3rd and 4 and you can break a tackle and get 2 more yards to get that first down, I mean, that just means so much. I think that goes for God at times. You still have to have a guy who can move the chains, fall forward, get those tough yards in 3rd and short and 4th and short situations.
Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION below. I do not want you to get it on the 4th order. Order it now. We've already through 3 runs, Matt, of books. The next run is going to be 400. And let me tell you, I only have 100 books left right now on the 3rd order or the 3rd run. So make sure you're ordering now. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you over on the website.